Greetings, friends. If I don't look very friendly to you today, it's because it's cold spring day and it's raining. And it's the perfect day to answer a question I got from my Facebook friend, Claudia. The gist of her question is, why are Zen people JERKS? That's Jersey for jerks. Why are Zen people jerks, basically? I'm going to read her question to you. I have experienced over my 2.5 decades with Buddhism that the Buddhist centers I have visited or been a member of are not very friendly. They're not very friendly places. Hardly anyone extends warmth to one another unless they're already friends. I went to a few fish fries during Lent this past year for fun and fish, and I was really impressed by the welcoming warmth from strangers. I practice Zen, and I have always felt a bit bummed by the chilly atmosphere at the services. So, why are Buddhists sometimes chilly, frigid joiks? After my Zen teacher died, a bunch of us monks and nuns went to Japan on a kind of pilgrimage. We were basically teacher shopping. We were looking for a new Roshi or a new Zen master. And our journey took us to Zuiganji, which was a big, traditional, ancient, very well-respected historical landmark training monastery for new Rinzai Zen monks. So while we were there, they showed us around, and at one point they took us to this tiny little room near the front entrance. So when potential new students or guys who wanted to be monks would come to the monastery, there's a ritual. They would take the person and they would put them in this room. And they would say, basically something along the lines of, you don't got the goods to become a Zen monk. This is a difficult practice, and you look like a completely worthless human being. And then the student says, I am committed to the Dharma. Let me practice with you. I will show my determination. And he sits. He sits in that tiny little windowless room for 3 days. So for 72 hours, with supposedly monks coming and peeking in to see if he's doing it, that new student has to sit there. They're not welcomed into the monastery. This is part of the tradition. It goes back to the olden days where supposedly new students would come and knock on the door of the monastery, and a monk would appear, the biggest, ugliest, meanest monk in the monastery would appear with a big, heavy broom and chase the student away. And eventually the student would prostrate themselves at the door of the monastery outside in the cold, in the rain, in the snow, in the blazing heat. They would prostrate themselves there for 3 days or more to prove their willingness and their dedication and their mettle. So you can see that Zen practice already in its very early stages, when it is making contact with new students, new practitioners, new devotees, you can see that it's very different than the Christian tradition, which swings open its doors and welcomes you in with open arms, oftentimes grabbing you on the sidewalk and trying to hand you free pamphlets about how Jesus is your Savior. So Christianity, the Christianity of Lenten fish fries, where you're welcomed in and treated in a friendly manner, that Christianity is very different than the Zen tradition. In the Zen tradition, there are very strong barriers to entry. In case you think I'm exaggerating, there's a great book by a Japanese Rinzai Zen master, Soko Morinaga, called From Novice to Master. And he tells the story about how when he went to a Zen monastery for the first time to train, they told him, you need to make sure you have casket money because this is going to be a difficult practice. And chances are you may die here. And if you die, we do not want to incur the cost for your funeral. So great is your responsibility. So deep does your responsibility for yourself run that if you die and are gone, even then you can't be a burden. Think about it. It's worth pausing and feeling how deep that sense of responsibility runs. So within Japanese Buddhism, there are basically two ways to practice or seek enlightenment. There's Jiriki and Tariki. So the literal definition of Jiriki is one's own strength. Tariki, the direct translation is other power or outside of one's self. So with Jiriki, it is your own energy, effort, and power that manifests the enlightened state. With Tariki, it is from outside help that you manifest your true nature. It's from an other power. So Christianity is a Tariki spiritual practice. You are seeking salvation through Christ. And in fact, all monotheistic and probably all religions that have a God are Tariki, right? Because it's always a power outside of yourself that saves you. In Zen Buddhism, that is not the case. It is Jiriki, one's own power, through which you achieve liberation. So that's a quick overview of where the Zen tradition is coming from. You're asked to take full responsibility for yourself. There are two more points I want to make about the unfriendliness of a Zen Buddhist monk and where it comes from and why. Two more points, quickly, and then I want to segue into something that I've been thinking about lately. Thinking a lot about lately. So Zen Buddhism is not about affirming the self or giving your very hungry, very clever ego food, right? This is the principle of anatta, or not self, which I've done tons of videos about on this channel. In Buddhism, in Zen, to very, very, very quickly recap, there is not a soul or a homunculus in your head that is solid through and through with you-ness. So Zen is very clear on this principle, and so much of the practice and the customs and the rituals and the vibe at a training center emanates from this principle of anatta, or not self. Conversely, so many of our social conventions, especially in the West and especially in individualistic America, so many of our social conventions come from or are all about affirming the self, affirming yourself, affirming myself. You do you, I'll do me, we'll all do ourselves. I respect you. Be yourself. Tell me about yourself. There are all these customs, and I'm not saying they're bad, but they're customs. They're societal customs, and they affirm the self. Much of our friendliness comes from this desire to make people comfortable with themselves so, I don't know, they don't kill you. or steal your stuff. But Zen is not about the affirmation of the self. Secondly, Zen is about getting to the heart of the matter, and that means stripping down and stripping away everything superfluous. Like, you will not find a bunch of colorful prayer flags, multiple incense bowls, bodhisattva tankas. It is a stripped down practice, stripped down environment. This also means, preciously enough, stripped down social conventions, stripped down social expectations, right? There's a culture of quietness or silence in a monastery. So much of what feels like chilliness and unfriendliness in a Zen group is really just a deep respect for and manifestation of silence. And I'm going to tell you, if you can turn your mind around and away from the expectation for people to meet your social needs and fill your ears with a bunch of words, right? If you can let go of that expectation and just be in the silence, I promise you, you feel this, the tears begin to well up, the tears of total gratitude that you don't have to speak, that you don't have to present a friendly face, that you can just come into a space and be with fellow human beings in silence. So now that I have offered a defense of the jerk monk and the jerk monk factory, which is the monastery, now I want to offer a bit of a critique. I think, first of all, that here in the West and in America where I practiced, I think that there's a lot of what I call like a bunch of Westerners doing like Japanese Zen monk cosplay. They put on their robes and they shave their heads. We put on our robes and we shave our heads and we start barking at students, imitating, I don't know, Kane from Kung Fu, imitating our own teachers, you know, imitating the stern, severe, stark, fierce, usually Japanese, maybe Korean, maybe Chinese within the Zen tradition, teachers that we trained with, right? And I think it's bogus and unnecessary. I mean, I'm not going to name any names, but there's an American Rinzai Zen teacher, and I've watched some of this guy's videos, and he was born in, I don't know where he was born, somewhere in America. And this guy cops a Japanese accent, like a Japanese accented English when he's giving his Dharma talks on YouTube, right? This guy's like, now, I will teach you Dharma. I'm like, are you kidding me? So a lot of the unfriendliness in American Zen monasteries and Zen groups is, it's like, people are like performing, okay? They're performing what they think the practice should look like. It's like play. It's like when you're a kid and you play Voltron or G-Force or something, right? Like you do what the character does. And I think this is a big problem. I think it turns away a lot of new students because it's off-putting to new students. And a lot of people, when they come to a Zen group, they don't want to have a bunch of new attitudes that they have to manifest. They don't want a little group. They don't want a little cult with its little culty rules, right? People are coming because they have suffering and curiosity, and they want to nurture the curiosity, and they want to put that suffering in a room behind them and close the door, right? Oh, hey there, how you doing? Excuse me. You probably don't know me. You don't see me very often. I'm Editor Jack. You don't usually have to see me because usually the other guy, forward-facing Camera Jack, does his job. Not so much this time. So I think I didn't quite know how to bring this video home, and I edited something together, but I didn't actually like it. So I want to jump in from the future here, and something I've been realizing lately about myself is that I have had expectations in the past for my Zen community, for my teachers, and for my own practice. And I think one of the reasons that Buddhist centers can be so chilly and forbidding is because they really are icing out these kinds of expectations. They're trying to sort of keep your mind, keep the students' minds, the monks' minds, everybody's minds from jumping in and having something to grab onto, right? The practice is about taking, as Dogen calls it, that backwards step, right? And being with yourself together with all these other beautiful people, even if they're total jerks, just the fact that they're there with their hearts pumping blood and their neurons firing in their head and they're playing out their karma on this planet with the rest of you, the way they were meant to do it, that makes them beautiful. And the less chatter and niceties, the better for this kind of introspection. That's it. That's if you want to practice Buddhism, you get something out of it, and you're a little bit turned off by the, joiks. Maybe this will help you see it in a little bit of a different light. I think that's what Past Jack was trying to say, but he was too dang crabby, and he never got around to it. Ciao. Speaking of expectations, I have none of you. I offer these videos completely for free. However, if you would like to help out this channel, I have put a link to my PayPal site as well as my Patreon page. If you go to my Patreon page, there's essays and blog posts there and a nice community of practitioners. Also, please hit the subscribe button, notifications button, and the like button, because that kind of helps me get traction here on YouTube and helps these videos get out. I hope I wasn't too unfriendly to you here today. I was in a bad mood when I started this video. I'm in a relatively decent mood now. Thank you. Sayonara.